This occurred in 2017 and is 100% true. Due to a multitude of factors, including a recent death of a close friend, I was unbearably depressed at this time in my life. For that reason, my family flew across the country to visit me in LA, where I live. We thought it would be nice to visit Catalina Island. When we arrived, it became apparent to us that it was the off-season. It was late November. The weather was cold, and as a result, the island was nearly empty besides locals and a few straggling tourists such as ourselves. Our first priority was to ditch our luggage so we could explore the island. So we immediately checked into our motel. Though that word hardly does the place justice. I call it a motel because all the doors to the rooms exited to the outside, but in actuality, our room was one of 20 to 30 quaint guest house looking buildings, arranged in sort of a horseshoe shape around a walkway, with rooms on either side of the path. The entrance to the motel was essentially one of the points of the horseshoe, and if you walked dead straight, you'd reach the room we were given. Essentially on the corner before, you have to go right to go further into the horseshoe. So from our room, one path led back to the street, the other into the secluded maze of rooms. Stay with me. After a day of exploring, and having just finished dinner, it was time for the cold, dark walk back to the room. Catalina Island is a decent distance from the mainland, and let me just say, it gets dark. Similarly dark was my headspace after the dinner conversation took a left-hand turn, and my overwhelming depression got the best of me. I pulled my black hoodie tighter over my freezing ears and walked ahead of my parents to the hotel room, telling them I just needed to go to sleep. And I did, immediately. Depression sometimes makes that easy. I was already losing consciousness as they entered after me, drifting off without so much as a good night. I then woke up to my mom saying my name. A harsh whisper. The room had 2 beds. My parents' bed, closer to the door, and mine, further in the room. My mom's voice cut through the silence again. She sounded concerned for me. I didn't blame her, considering my mental state at the time. Groggy, I rolled over. "What?" I asked. As my eyes adjusted to the dim moonlight coming in through the curtains, I saw her turn to face me. She was surprised to see me in my bed. Her eyes got wide. If I'm in my bed, who was she talking to? We both looked back to where she was previously looking to see a hooded figure in all black standing over their bed. I know this is Let's Not Meet, and you are reading this knowing a creepy thing is going to happen. But understand how horrifically startling it is to be on an island in the middle of the ocean and wake up to see a hooded stranger looming over you. This moment seemed to last forever. Life isn't like movies, where characters unleash a blood-curdling scream. Sometimes, the only thing that comes out is something panicked and guttural. My mom's words became low and severe as she said my dad's name in a dire voice I've never heard her use before. Then the hooded figure did something so bizarre and unsettling. It didn't advance towards us, but instead crouched in the corner near where it stood. The way it crouched was so absolutely unexpected, even in regards to this already unexpected situation, that it terrified me. It seemed animalistic. I knew 2 things. The hooded figure had been standing over us sleeping, and it's not acting in any sort of way that I can understand. As opposed to the infinite moment of this figure standing over us mere seconds ago, The series of events that unfolded when my hulking ex-military dad woke up happened in an instant. Suddenly, we were out the door, not knowing which way the intruder went. My mom was screaming, "Get him! Get him!" My dad was running down one path of the horseshoe, further into the hotel, shouting through sheer adrenaline, "I'm going to fucking kill you!" I ran down the other path towards the street. When I got there, not a sign of the intruder, but it became suspiciously quiet behind me. I ran back to the room to find my dad quietly walking back, his head low. He gets really close to me and I hear him say, "It's a fucking kid." The explanation? Some young teen, tall and lanky as I am in my 20s, wearing all black, including a black hoodie, went into the wrong room. Our room. The one time my parents just so happened to forget to lock the door. My mom woke up when he entered, and, seeing a tall person in a black hoodie, thought he was me, assumedly leaving the room in a depressive episode. And when the hooded figure crouched, that was him realizing his mistake and panicking. He was scared of us. As I got back to the room, my mom walked out and hugs this kid, who was now crying his eyes out. I would be too if a massive ex-soldier was sprinting after me with murder in his eyes. So, to the now traumatized kids from Catalina Island, I look forward to reading your Let's Not Meet of this same event, from your perspective.
I'm posting here as I think I'm finally ready to tell my story. I moved to Sandbach in Cheshire, England around 3 to 4 years ago with an ex. Him and I had broken up by this point and were just friends in the house we rented, and everything was great. We weren't hostile towards each other and found out that we were better friends than in a relationship. I started going out to bars and local shops to make friends and see if anyone was as lonely as me by this point. I moved from Chelsea, London, to be with my ex and I didn't know anyone there. This was when I met Craig. Him and I became best friends quickly. He was a little odd, had a family in the area, and his own flat and etc. So, my ex moved away back with his family and I couldn't afford the rent on my own. So Craig and I rented our own house in Worcester, where his dad lived. His dad would be a 5-minute drive away from the house we settled at. Him and I were just best friends. We didn't do anything romantically, sexually, and he always had a few poor girls in tow. He would tell each of them that they were the one for him and that he loved them and etc. He had found 7 girls on the go at one point. I started seeing this guy Jay. He would stay over a few times and would eventually become my boyfriend. Craig hated it. We would argue about him, the fact that why should he care anyway? Him and I were only best friends, and he needed to stay out of my dating life. It was then things got physical. One night, Craig literally got on top of me in my room, put his knees on my arms, and started to strangle me. He was saying things like, "Where is he now?" And I honestly thought I was going to die. My brain switched to my mom, who was 4 to 5 hours away, and she would never know or would have to come to identify the body of her only child. I don't know what it was, but I managed to kick Craig and I ran. He had double locked the front door. He had hidden my bag and had smashed my new iPhone that I had gotten from my parents for my birthday. I was literally running down the stairs with him in tow, yelling that he's going to kill me. I knew the back door was open from him having a smoke earlier, and there was a garden gate. All I needed to do was open that. I ran for it, opened it, and made it. The next thing, I'm out on the street in short shorts and a pajama top barefoot. I just ran. I ran for a good half an hour towards town and used the payphone to call 999. The police picked me up. I couldn't get back into the house as Craig had my door key, and I told them the story. They took me to the station, had to unlock it as it was past 1 in the morning by now. They took photos of my neck that had bruising and my head that was bleeding where he had smashed me into the kitchen wall earlier. I had to sit in a patrol car to go to my house, and they picked up Craig. He was on the streets looking for me. I had to point him out and say, "That's him! That's him!" to them. He said he was out looking for me as he was worried for me. I don't think that's true. I think he was out looking for me to silence me, so I didn't tell anyone. They arrested him, and I got told he would stay in a cell overnight, and a policeman let me into my house as they used a key Craig had. While I was in the house alone, I gathered my things. I had left my laptop, some clothes, shoes, and makeup in a rush. I thought I could easily replace them, and I just wanted to get away. And I was so worried that he would come back any second through the front door. I had no purse, no money, no phone, and my parents lived 5 hours away. Thankfully, I don't know why, but I had the sense to hide my car key in my bra earlier that evening. I got into my car and drove to Morrison's petrol station. I was bleeding from my head, no shoes on, and bruised. I broke down there and used their phone to call my mom. At first, she was annoyed that I had woken her up, but then I explained everything to her. She ended up putting $200 in the petrol cashier's account for me to fill up my car, get some food and a hot drink to calm down. I then drove to my parents. I later got told through a friend of a friend that Craig got released in the morning as it was his word against mine, and he smashed my laptop up when he found out that I wasn't at home anymore. Whatever. My stuff got replaced, and I am now with an amazing guy who treats me like a queen. Sometimes I get flashbacks of that night where I truly believed I could have died. As for Craig, I blocked him, deleted everything to do with his family and him, changed my number, and even broke off friendships with friends that knew me and him. Please, let's never meet again, because this time, I'll be ready for you.
I'll begin by giving a little background. At the time this happened, I was a 16-year-old female, working at a chain coffee place while in high school. I'm in college now. I'm 19, 7 hours away from said place. This happened at a time in my life in which I was super shy and had a tough time standing up for myself. In retrospect, I could have handled it a lot better. I used to work closing shifts with my best friend after school. It'd be like from 3 to 10 p.m. or 5 to 10 p.m. We worked at a relatively dead store, so we spent most of our time playing music and talking. We did our duties like taking the trash out and restocking, etc. Although, both of us always dreaded taking the trash out as we had to go out back. The dumpsters were behind the store in a dimly lit area next to a sketchy liquor store. One night, a man came in. It wasn't unusual to have customers near closing. It was just uncommon to see anyone we didn't already know. Our store was mostly just regulars. He was lanky and probably around 30. I mostly just remember his eyes. They were piercing. The type that never break a stare. I remember initially thinking he was attractive. Yikes. The way he spoke was short and concise. Just ordering a small hot latte. I made his order and that was it. I told my friend about how I thought he was attractive, and we then started referring to him as the small hot latte guy. We always call people by their drink orders. He came a bunch of times after that, each time staying a little longer and longer, talking a little more and more. One day he came with a woman, presumably his girlfriend. I remember I felt a little weird, like she was staring at me or like they had spoken about me beforehand. She glanced over at him and said, "Wow, she is pretty." I didn't think much of it, said thank you, served them, and I thought that would be the end of it. He then began showing up and talking to me a lot without her. He started off as being friendly. I honestly don't even remember what we talked about. I think music? Then he got kind of flirty. Initially I was just flattered, but being underage and immature, I didn't even think about the fact that it was kind of alarming. He began to stay for a while. Sometimes he would bring a laptop or a notebook. I could feel him staring at me and listening to our conversations. But at that point, I wasn't getting creep vibes from him, as my coworker and I had dealt with our fair share of creeps. He then somehow got my number. To this day, I honestly don't know how. He texted me and somehow I still wasn't creeped out. We would talk about music a lot. Then I began to learn more about him. He was in his late 30s and had prior problems with substance abuse that he never really got into. He went back to school for art and would show me his pieces. He'd also send a lot of pictures of nature. I thought they were nice. Looking back, they were actually pretty creepy. For example, a picture of his backyard, sent at like 3 a.m. He'd stay and work on his art as well. He then told me he barely enjoyed hot lattes. He just wanted to come see me. He would come in and began giving me gifts. This was the point I finally started realizing that I did not like the situation. He began by just giving little snacks or drinks. I would accept, but would never eat or drink them. It wasn't that I thought he had ill intentions. I just had a hard time accepting gifts. I remember one night he brought me a book about one of his favorite artists. I reluctantly took it, but had tried to decline before. I remember telling him about one of my favorite musicians and sent him a link to a performance I really liked. He started being kind of sexual, while still talking about the song. He then began talking super suggestively, and I would laugh it off and decline when he'd ask to send pictures. I began talking less and less and told my friend about the situation. She agreed that it was getting creepy and said I should maybe change my schedule. I told her I'd be fine. I'm stubborn. He'd still come every week at closing time, and he'd even stay in his car till we closed, meaning he'd watch me go to the back and take the trash out. I began making excuses as to why I couldn't talk, and began going to the back of the store when I'd see him. He then sent me a bunch of text about how graceful I looked while working. I didn't respond. He kept texting me, and I told him I didn't want to talk anymore. He sent a bunch of messages describing how much I meant to him, and how he wouldn't be okay. I started freaking out. I blocked his number. Still, I returned to work. I honestly thought he'd stop coming. I was wrong. I felt uneasy the whole shift. My friend said that if he came, to just go to the back and wait it out. I saw his car coming and my heart sank. I was on the verge of tears and hurried to the back. I could hear them talking, but couldn't decipher what exactly was being said. Then, about 10 minutes later, she came to the back. I could visibly see that she was upset. We ended up both just crying and hugging each other. Not the first time we've done that. She told me he kept asking to see me and asking how I was, and she just kept refusing. She told him how I was underage and how he made me feel uncomfortable. He wouldn't give up. Eventually, she threatened him and he left. We were both shaken up, but I thought it was over. It was time to take out the trash and lock up, and we both felt okay. I was opening the door while juggling like 3 bags of trash and saw something on the ground. I was confused at first, but then realized what I saw. It was flowers and a note. I felt sick to my stomach and looked around the parking lot. I didn't see his car. I threw them out immediately and told my friend I didn't want to read the note. She read it and told me I had to. It was something to the effect of, "I've never felt so connected to someone. You're breaking my heart. Please don't do this. I'm sorry," etc. Looking back, I honestly didn't lead him on, but initially, I just had felt as if I was in the wrong. Nonetheless, we turned the corner to take the trash out and both prayed the parking lot was empty. It wasn't. Let's just say the trash was not going to get taken out that night. I continued working there and still worked there on my breaks from college. I had different hours after that, and the summer I was going to leave for my freshman year, I saw him again. It was around 3 p.m. It was busy. We made eye contact. He left. That was the last time I saw him. Looking back, I was so naive and could have handled the situation so much better. I am forever thankful to my friend. So yeah, small hot latte guy who forever tainted my love for espresso? Let's not meet again.
So I'm a 23-year-old female. I live in a townhouse with my 2 children, 2 and 6 months old. My fiance did live with us until 2 weeks ago when I caught him trying to fuck other women and made him move out. That's important to the story. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and when he did live with us, my ex worked evenings. And by the way, sorry for the long post. Let me set the scene. We live in a tiny town in northern Pennsylvania. My line of townhouses sits in front of a big field that runs to a line of woods. As far as I'm aware, these woods stretch for at least a few miles, and I'm not aware of any houses in there or any roads that lead through them. My living room has 3 windows that look to the field, and my bedroom on the 2nd floor only has 1 window that faces that way as well. People do tend to walk their dogs back in the field, and kids sometimes play back there, but I rarely ever see anyone close to my house. For that reason, I tend to leave my blinds and curtains open because I guess I just enjoy the view. So in July of 2019, I was laying in bed trying to fall asleep. All the lights were off, but I had my window and blinds open since it was so warm. I was looking out the window, and I had noticed small red and white lights just outside. I got up and looked to realize that the lights were coming from a drone. I ran downstairs to where my fiancé of that time was sitting in the living room and ran to the window. I told him what I saw, but of course, when he went to look, it was gone. I was paranoid that the drone could have had a camera on it and someone was watching me with it. I kept my blinds closed for a while after that. Fast forward to January of this year, I guess I stupidly got comfortable and assumed that whoever it was flying the drone was a one-time creep. My blinds were open, and I had just gotten out of the shower. I was sitting on my bed pretty much naked except for my underwear. I was scrolling on my phone when out of the corner of my eye, I saw lights again out of the dark window. It was that damn drone again. I ran out of the room and waited for a few minutes. I peeked out into my room. and it was gone. I quickly shut my blinds and got dressed. Honestly, I felt sick at how stupid I was to leave my window open again, especially when I was practically naked. Now, for the really disturbing part. My 2-year-old son and I were out in the field 2 weeks ago, just 3 days after I kicked my boyfriend out. We were playing ball. I had my 6-month-old strapped to me in a baby carrier. Probably about a half hour after we had been out there, I hear a slight whirring noise coming towards us. I looked up and saw that damn drone flying towards us. I looked around and didn't see anyone. It stopped right over us. I freaked and grabbed my son and dragged him into the house, looking back at the tree line every so often as we went. And I knew they had to be hiding in there. I went inside, closed the blinds, and called my mom and told her about the situation. She told me to keep an eye out. I said that I would. My son likes to line up his toys along the windowsill, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to open them up an inch or so. A little while later, after we ate dinner, and it was almost dark, I was feeding my 6-month-old, and my son was playing. He was standing over the window lining up his toys. When he started saying, "Dada, Dada," I assumed he was just missing his father and dismissed him by saying he was going to see him that weekend. But he kept saying, "Dada, Dada." Though, I looked up and saw him pointing to the window under the little gap that the blinds didn't cover. I froze. I remember that he calls any man with facial hair Dada because it reminds him of his father. But there was no way someone would be bold enough to actually come up to my window, and not when my neighbors are literally right there. Anyone could see them. But there aren't any lights back there, so unless someone actually stepped out of their house, I guess nobody would see them. Maybe it was my ex, but he should be at work at that time. I ran to the window and moved my son. I didn't want to lift the blinds, but honestly, I was sure it had to be the person who had been creeping on me for the past year, and I wanted to see who it was. I pushed the blinds up and was looking at a man who I definitely had never seen before. He was crouching in front of me. He was bald with a mustache and a goatee, and I have no idea how old he was. He could have been anywhere from 30 to 50. When he saw me, he smiled and stood up. I yelled and told him to fuck off and that I was calling the cops. He just stood there, smiling at me like a freak. I was about to close the blinds again when he said something that I couldn't hear. I told him to leave again, and he said it louder this time. "I just want to talk to you." I shook my head no and yelled the same thing to him. He started slapping his hands on the window, yelling, "No, no," over and over. I grabbed my phone and, scared he was going to break in, I dialed 911. My kids were crying from the yelling and I felt on the verge of tears. I told the operator what was going on, and the whole time that I was on the phone, the man was pounding on my window, screaming now. He was yelling all kinds of nonsense, and I only caught some of it. He said he's been watching me for months, and that I'm beautiful, and that he wants me to come with him, and that he'll kill my children if I don't. The operator told me to go into an upstairs room and hide until the police arrive. My town doesn't have any police department, so we rely on the state police. She said it would be about 20 minutes, but just to stay on the phone with her. The man was practically punching my window now and just screaming like a maniac. I was about to grab my kids and run upstairs when I heard someone else screaming. The man bolted. I looked out and saw my neighbor and his girlfriend. I opened the window, and my neighbor said that he heard the man, so he ran around the building. He said when the guy heard him, he ran back into the woods and disappeared in the tree line. They said they also called the police. I thanked them 100 times, and the police arrived 10 minutes later. They did a quick search around the buildings and in the trees, but obviously didn't find anything. I've been super paranoid since then and stayed at my parents' a few nights after it happened. I don't know why the guy targeted me or why he waited so long to do something. I'm just happy that my neighbors were there to intervene, or who knows what would have happened. So, to the creep who has been stalking me and my family for the last year, I genuinely hope we never ever meet again.
Longtime reader and first-time poster. This might not be written in the best grammar, so please forgive me. This story takes place back in April 2018. I live on Long Island and was in my freshman year of high school. I was going through a tough time. Earlier in the week, my girlfriend broke up with me because of rumors she heard about me, which I won't share on this subreddit. There was a lot of drama going around my life at this time. Depression, broken hearts, typical high school bullshit. My mom knew I was down in the dumps, so one night, she took me to get a new phone in the nearby mall. I had an iPhone 5 at the time, going to an iPhone 8, so I needed a new one. We were gone for about an hour. We returned home with my dog greeting us. Let me tell you something about my dog. He's a short, stocky golden retriever who's never violent or vicious in any way. This is important for later. My dad was still at work, so it was my duty to take out the trash. I went through the front door, with my dog resting on the porch, and went to the side of my house to throw out the trash. When I was throwing the bag, I look over to my neighbor's house, where I saw a guy dressed all in black around 6 feet, walking out of their side door. Being a paranoid 14-year-old, I had so many red flags going off. Let me tell you something about my neighbors and my neighborhood. I live in a safe neighborhood, but not 15 minutes walking distance away, we live by a town that has a high crime rate ranging from muggings, drug dealing, and even murders from time to time. My neighbors, on the other hand, have an older stepson who drag races in that part of town for some stupid reason. I wasn't in fight or flight mode yet, because I was assuming that this could be one of his friends. Stupid of me, I know. Until there was another man. And then another. There were 6 fucking guys dressed in all black coming out of the house and to the backyard. Then, I knew what was going on. So, I tried walking away as if I saw nothing. When I was on my driveway, I saw 2 of the 6 guys slowly walking towards me. My blood went cold within a second as they were getting close. My dog went running off the porch, chasing the 6 men down the street and chasing them into the night. My dog came back and I was still standing on my driveway trying to process what I just saw. I went back inside with my mom asking me what just happened. I told her what I just saw, with the 6 men coming out of the neighbor's house and heading towards me. We called the police and they came over to ask me questions. I described the 6 men as best as I could. The police told us we're not the first to experience this, as there were 7 burglaries all over town at the time, and I probably witnessed them attempting to break in. I told the officers about 2 of the 6 guys walking towards me after I saw them. They told me that since I saw them, they were trying to stop a witness. That was basically a friendly way of them saying that the burglars were going to kill me since I saw what they were doing. As typical as this could get, the best they could do was a police report. I was always afraid of break-ins, but I never thought I would experience one. To this day, I'm still surprised that my harmless golden retriever saved my life that night, and showed me that no matter where you are in this world, this shit could happen anywhere. 4 years have gone by. My family now has a gun, and I am currently training in kickboxing for self-defense. to the 6 men who tried to break into my neighbor's house, let's not meet again. I love a good burglary every now and then. It's very satisfying to watch their confidence be replaced with terror when they see me without my mask. What? You didn't think I always wore this, did you? Thank you very much to Miss Creepy Tales for being a guest on our show today. It's always a pleasure to watch her spells misfire when she thinks no one's looking, but don't tell her I said anything. Her channel covers a wide range of horror stories that are thrilling to listen to. Check her channel out in the description below if you want to check her out. And of course, for this video, you know the drill. Like, leave a comment, subscribe if you're new, and make sure you turn on the bell notification if you just can't bear to miss any video that I release. I also upload every episode to the SilverThreads podcast for your audio listening pleasure. And for any business inquiries, please email me at storiesforsilverthreads@gmail.com. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next time with another story.